All right, fire away. Who's got the first question?
So it looks like your administration is going to allow concealed weapons in the Capitol building. Why did you decide to do that?
We'll announce that to the Department of Administration tomorrow, so they're still finalizing that. But they've done a thorough review of other states that have concealed carry laws. Obviously, we're the 49th state. There are many states that have those in public buildings. Again, we'll announce the specifics of it tomorrow, but the bottom line is, whether it's the Capitol or anywhere else, people who've gone through extensive training, who've gotten a permit, are not people I'm concerned about. People who are not doing that would be the ones I'm concerned about, and those are the ones we're dealing with in law enforcement.
It's obviously been a little crazy at our Capitol than most this year. A lot of tension.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a good idea, given all the animosity out there, to introduce this?
Well, again, in the states, the bottom line is it's the law. Other states have that. Other states have protests and things in public structures and have not had problems with that. So the Department of Administration will announce a specific policy on Friday, but the bottom line is they've looked at other states that had that, and other states have not had problems.
Have you heard of the Assembly and Senate policies yet?
No, we have not. I know they're reviewing it, and again, ours hasn't been finalized, so I would imagine after the Department of Administration announces it tomorrow, they'll probably put out something shortly thereafter. But the bottom line is we asked the Department of Administration to look at other states and what they do with that, and there are plenty of states that have access in public buildings. They have not had problems with that, and we don't anticipate any problems here in Wisconsin.
Well, it looks like the Assembly is going to move ahead today with a plan to allow it on the floor, allow weapons on the floor and in the galleries and the committee rooms. Any thoughts on that? Again,
that's something I'd have to review their policy. I haven't sat down and talked with them. The policies in terms of the Senate and the Assembly are up to the members of the legislature. We'll certainly look at them and observe them, but have not looked at any particulars of that.
Do you favor keeping the doors open without metal detectors?
Yeah, again, right now, we operate just fine. Again, I'm not worried about people who go through anywhere in the state, whether it's any location. I'm not worried because when I look around the country, states that have laws in place for concealed carry like ours, with the training requirement and with a permit in place, have not had problems. The people that are problems are not people carrying a concealed weapon who have a permit and have had the training. So no matter where it's at, I know a lot of focus on this particular structure, but the bottom line is the debate was up originally about the bill. There was a lot of hysteria out there without regard for the facts. The facts are pretty clear. States where the 49th state has not been a problem. States that have parallel laws, for example, in Minnesota, across the way for a decade, they've had a law for concealed carry very similar to ours in terms of the permit requirement. They've not had problems in Minnesota. I don't anticipate problems in any place, whether it's in Madison or anywhere across the state in Wisconsin.
Yesterday, there was a hearing on redistricting and making the district boundaries immediately. In fact, my understanding is for any election-related component, the old boundaries would prevail. So I think it was Senator Lasich said we need to change that law. Do you have any feelings about that?
I haven't looked at that specifically. I have heard from local government officials, clerks, and others. We've heard concerns raised just because under the spring elections, local officials will be asked to run elections based on the new boundaries. Yeah. And then if there were recall elections, there's some concern that then they'd have to turn around and run those under the old boundaries. And there's some concern, regardless of party, just amongst local officials, clerks in particular, that would cause a lot of confusion, not only for elections officials, but for voters as well, because you'd have in February and April in the spring local government elections, you'd have the new boundaries in place, but potentially if they're recalled, they might still be run on the old boundaries. That's something that ultimately I wouldn't be surprised if somebody doesn't try to litigate, but in terms of what other options, I really haven't looked at it. I just heard that concern.
Yeah, it seemed in the hearing yesterday that there was a lot of questions
Yeah.
that were being asked by both sides of the aisle.
Again, this is uncharted territory because we've never had, anything like this before with these seemingly endless elections with the calls for recalls. And so what it does is it poses all sorts of unprecedented questions, both in terms of potential confusion that local government officials have expressed, combined with the millions of dollars of cost that they'll have to take on if there's special recall elections on top of that. So aside from whether people are for or against the recalls, I think what it's pointed out is that there's a great amount of potential confusion and a fair amount of taxpayers' money that will have to be spent if those recalls are pursued.
Should it be Wisconsin, we're open for elections?
Well, I mean, certainly, it's one of, it's interesting, the day after the recall election, so on August 10th, I was at the Wisconsin State Fair talking to people at the livestock auction, and I got to tell you, no matter whether they were Republican or Democrat, people said they were just happy the elections were over because they were sick of all the attack ads and everything else. I think there's got to be a little bit of fatigue there as well. That more than anything, people just want us to get back to work. They want us to get things done. I think most people are just kind of tired of endless elections.
Good time for one more.
You went to Iowa yesterday, and you were still met with protesters even in other states. Do you have any particular reaction to that?
Well, protesters, I saw a lot of protesters from other states here in Madison. As the protest built earlier this year, more and more came from Illinois, Nevada, New York, New Jersey, and they proudly showed signs and banners and shirts that said that. So having organized folks in other states is not surprising. For us, it gave me, when they do that, it just raises the interest in what we're talking about, and for us to be able to tell whether it's in Des Moines, Iowa, or Washington, D.C., or anywhere else, to tell the story about how our reforms are working here in Wisconsin, how it's improving the business climate, how it's ultimately made our schools and local governments easier to balance their budgets and balance the state budget, and ultimately how property taxpayers are going to see the results, the positive results this December. Those are all good things for us to tell, and if certain people help us draw more attention to it, in the end, that's certainly something we welcome. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.